transition has definitely been hard. Whether it was just that weird feeling of, I should go left, I should go right here. Or at one point, I was doing a show one time. There used to be a dinner theater in called Tom Brown's Garage. Did you work there? It's weird vision when you work there. It was a really cool place, actually. It was interactive. And the guest came to a 1920s speakeasy on the south side of Chicago. Like, in order to get in the door, and the password and all this kind of stuff. And we sang and danced, and actually we served dinners too. And I was babyface, and it was a great gig. I loved the gig, actually. But I was setting up one for my first show, preparing, and literally this voice was like, "You're done here, like, and we're done, scene." And I was like, "What?" And it just was just this feeling of like, I'm done. And I walked up to the owner. I said, "Well, I know I probably have to work tonight because I'm on the schedule, and I will work till you can find your person. Like, I'm done here." And she just looked at me like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I can't explain it. I'm done." And at that point, I was jumping into coaching and all this other stuff, but it was just this feeling of like, I can't tell where it came from. It was just like this intuition, this voice that was just like, "We're done here." It's time for our guests. So, my guests are Jeff Miller and Anthony Navarro. They are the co-host of Talk Out Loud, the podcast, where the LGBTQIA plus community has center stage to tell their stories. They also craft experiences with their event production company, Liven It Up Events in Chicago, Los Angeles, and nationwide. Whether a story being told through a wedding, a corporate event, social engagement, or an episode of the podcast, they are driven with intention and purpose to make that story come to life. They're really about stories. As I read this intro, you've guessed it. They are the story people, which is so cool. But in order to create the life that they are living now, both professionally and personally, they have had to follow their instincts, nice word, to make changes in order for opportunities and growth to come up and open to where that takes them. And just a little background, so I've known Jeff for a while, and Anthony just met a few months ago, and just dear people. So I'm actually so excited. I can't talk, which is so good. So that's a good thing. So it's a compliment for you, Jeff.
All right, thank you all for tuning in to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice of music, your station. My name is Chef Badu, and I'm a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier. I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And what we do is we provide a suite of financial services, including tax preparation, financial coaching, credit repair, and services of that sort. So today we're here to talk about just a recap on how the market went in 2020. 2020, of course, was a pretty wild year. It's a very, very rocky year. But it's, I would say it was prosperous for some. But unfortunately, there were some people that took a hit. So we're going to go in depth to see what happened in the market, and also a few things to look ahead, and then we'll sort of bring it back to today, or basically to now, to the present, to 2021, and how some of these things are being tied together. So I think it'll be very important to really pay attention to today and take notes, right? Take as many notes as you can. And for those that are new to the show, this is our first show of the year. This is a show, Money Talks, where all we talk is money, live on WGHC LP 98.3 FM. Essentially where change happens, and then also your voice, your music, your station. So the first thing I would like to do is kick it off with a market recap or a market report for last Friday. Basically, the report is as of last Friday, ultimately. So let's look at what's happening now, and then let's maybe go back in the past for 2020, see what happened, see if there's predictable patterns that we can see. Because what I always like to say is history does tend to repeat itself. What goes up usually comes down. What goes down must come right back up. So that's one thing to understand about the market, really with any market, especially as it relates to money, is it doesn't just go down forever, nor does it go up forever. There has to be a stopping point. There has to be a balance in the fact to it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Basically, what it's saying is you can't have something that's too good, nor can you have something that's too bad. So let's talk about the markets as of January 8th, 2021. And shout out to Liz. She said, "Where's the money?" Oh, yeah, we're about to talk about it in a second. So last Monday, stocks began the new year down on worries over the Georgia runoff elections. Right. So last Monday there were worries about the elections, a surge in COVID-19 cases, and evidence that a new strain of the virus has entered the country. Holy cow! Just when we thought COVID-19 was quote unquote slowing down, there's a whole new strain. I actually heard another one today, a brand new strain today, and we're talking about the following Monday. So we're talking about today, this Monday. So last Monday there was another strain. And today I heard rumors that there is even another strain on top of that. I'm like, how many strains of COVID do we have? Do we just shut the whole world down and just say, forget it? Or do we keep pushing, trying to get vaccines? Next thing you know, these vaccines might not be effective for the new strains. And now we got to go back to square one, go back to the drawing table, and all of a sudden figure out ways that we can get rid of this virus. So it is something pretty serious, right? And that we don't know when this vaccine is going to, or we don't know when COVID is pretty much going to end. At this point, it's basically this whole thing of we're just playing this waiting game, ultimately. All right, so let's continue the topic. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Russell 2000 each fell 1.5%. The Dow declined 1.3%. The global Dow went down 0.5%. Treasury yields and the dollar were mixed, and crude oil prices fell. Some sectors took heavy losses last Monday, including real estate, utilities, industrials, information technology, or IT for short. That's a very, very hot industry right now. Communication services and financials. That's also another hot industry. Then on Tuesday, let's talk about what happened last Tuesday. So Monday was a bad day. Now let's talk about Tuesday. It was actually a pretty bad day last Monday. Stocks recovered last Tuesday, spurred by cyclicals and small caps. The Russell 2000 led the surge, advancing 1.7%, followed by NASDAQ 1%. NASDAQ, by the way, is composed mainly of technology stocks such as Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Google, Amazon, and yes, Amazon is a tech company, for those that didn't know. The global Dow went up 0.9%, and the S&P 500 went up 0.7%. Then last but not least, the Dow went up by 0.6%. By the way, I know we talked about this last time, but PPP loan applications have been released, and you can apply today through a small local community bank such as GN Bank. Shout out to GN Bank. And also we have other community banks that you can go through, the smaller banks basically. The larger banks will open up later this week, possibly Wednesday. And if you do need help with that, please feel free to reach out. The PPP stands for Paycheck Protection Program, and essentially those loans are available to small businesses, meaning you have to have a business. If you aren't a business owner, you might want to be a business owner. When the third round of stimulus comes out, you'll be one of the first people in line. But essentially, you are allowed to get this PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. Applications have opened today. We had a webinar last week to cover that. We also even talked about that on the radio on my last segment before I went out on vacation. And then you also have the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan / grant, which you can apply for as well once it's released, which it has not been released yet. So something to keep in mind. Just wanted to mention that for those who aren't aware that today money has been released. For our firm, we won't be applying until Wednesday for our clients because that's when our banks will open up. So just something to keep in mind. Moving on, Treasury yields and crude oil prices rose while the dollar slipped. Most of the market sectors gained, with energy posting the largest advance, climbing 4.5% on the day. Wednesday was a day that will be remembered. Yeah, Wednesday was crazy. So basically, we had the election. Essentially, we had the Georgia election on Tuesday, but I believe Wednesday was when they really found out who exactly won. So that led to a lot of violence that took place at the United States Capitol and interrupted certification of the presidential election. So for those that don't know, we do have a new president-elect, Mr. Joe Biden, who I believe is getting inaugurated next week. And we are still trying to impeach our current president, even though we have another president coming in, within a week or so. Or at least I believe the inauguration is next week. But basically, we're looking to impeach our current president because of the, for lack of a better term, foolery that's going on in Capitol, as if we're not, we're in the White House, basically, as if we're not in a pandemic. So just a lot of drama, a lot of reality TV type stuff going on in the world today. That's how serious the world is being taken right now. So nevertheless, equities posted solid gains by day's end, led by the small caps of the Russell 2000, which vaulted 4.0% on the heels of a 1.7% jump the prior day. Only the Nasdaq lost ground, falling 0.6% as tech shares lagged. The global Dow advanced 2.1%. The Dow climbed 1.4%. The S&P 500 went up 0.6%. 10-year treasuries surpassed 1.0% for the first time since last March. That's pretty terrible. Crude oil prices rose above $50 per barrel while the dollar was mixed. By the way, the Democratic Party did basically win the Senate. And of course, for the first time since 2008, the presidency is controlled by the Democrats. The House is controlled by the Democratic Party. And then also the Senate now is controlled. So basically anything that passes by the Democratic Party is just going to go through. So that led to a lot of turmoil in Capitol, at the United States Capitol. And then also technology shares went down because investors were scared that there would be restrictions or more stuff, more restrictions, more laws and rules being placed on tech companies. So for everything that happens, there's a direct impact to the market. So the reason why the markets jump so high is actually because of the fact that the Democratic Party won the Senate, and that leads to more stimulus. So we do expect a third stimulus package pretty soon, possibly end of this month, early next month. I mean, I think it's going to be crazy. I think there will be a fourth and a fifth stimulus package passed this year, and the U.S. government will end up in $10 trillion worth of debt by the end of this year. That's quite scary. Yeah, student loans will probably be forgiven up to a certain amount, let's say $10,000 if you're eligible. So stimulus checks will be flying left and right. I mean, they'll just be depositing money into the bank accounts like it's nothing. So just something to keep in mind there. Last Thursday, stocks continued to advance, apparently unaffected by the events of the prior day. Investors pinned their hopes of a speedier economic recovery on additional stimulus, right, and increased vaccines. So let me repeat that. Investors pinned their hopes of a speedier economic recovery on additional stimulus, right, because the Democratic Party won the Senate. So that means additional stimulus will be pushed into the economy and increased vaccines. Here's another thing to note. The Biden tax plan, which is set to increase taxes, we'll actually talk about that 2 weeks from now. The Biden tax plan will most likely pass because now the Democratic Party has control of everything, pretty much. They'll still get the Republican Party input, but they'll just say, you know what, we can just pass it, whatever. We run everything anyway. So that's pretty much what's going to happen over the next at least 2 years, because there's an election every 2 years, from the House, essentially, and basically in the House and the Senate. So just something to keep in mind there, that we could potentially be in this for the next 2 years, and then who knows, over the next years down the road, it could continue or it might end at a certain point. But basically, the fact that vaccines are out, investors are still hopeful that that's going to stabilize the economy, which technically is true. When there's a problem and there's a solution, it eases concerns a bit. The tech stocks of the NASDAQ recovered from Wednesday's losses to post a solid 2.6% gain last Thursday. The small caps of the Russell 2000 continued to surge, advancing 1.9%, followed by the S&P 500, 1.5%, the global Dow 1%, and the Dow 0.7%. The yields on 10-year treasuries rose last Thursday, as did crude oil prices and the dollar. IT, consumer discretionary, energy, financials, and communication services were the top performing sectors of the day. Now let's talk about last Friday. So last Wednesday, pretty good in the market. Tuesday was good. Thursday was good. Now let's talk about Friday. Last Friday proved to be another banner day for equities, as each of the benchmark indexes posted gains. So we have 4 straight days of stock market gains in last week, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. Except for the small caps of the Russell 2000, which fell 0.3%. The NASDAQ jumped 1%. Followed by the S&P 500, up 0.6%. Global Dow 0.3%. And then the Dow 0.2%. Treasury yields, crude oil prices, and the dollar advanced. And consumer discretionary and real estate led the sectors. All right, so let's see what happened last week overall. Stocks climbed to all-time highs, so we are at all-time highs in the stock market last week, as investors latched onto President-elect Joe Biden's statement that he'd push for trillions. And I mean trillions of dollars. We're already in $3 trillion worth of debt, but he's going to push another trillions. He didn't say trillion, he said trillions with an S at the end, as if we're not already deep in debt. Trillions of dollars in further aid and stimulus. By the way, when there's more stimulus, when there's more spending, somebody has to pay for it. So just something to keep in mind. Somebody's got to pay for it. It could be you, it can be myself, it can be somebody you know, your parent, your grandparent. Somebody's got to pay for it. Money basically doesn't just magically appear. Well, actually, it does for the government. It magically appears by printing the money. And then they say, oh, you know what? Let's start taxing or increasing taxes, which is exactly what Joe Biden plans to do, is increase taxes, mainly for those making $400,000 or more in income. And I hope you strive to get to that level, if you're not already there. So at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for it. It will be most likely the high income earners, the W-2 folks. The W-2 folks and the doctors, dentists, lawyers, folks who really don't have tax shelters or haven't had tax, basically aren't able to get tax strategies, are going to be the ones that suffer the most, because you will be in a 50-50 partnership with the government, or in some cases 60-40 partnership, where, by the way, you don't get to keep the 60%, the government does. So that could be quite painful. Of course, the U.S. tax system is on a marginal system, so you would be taxed additional on top anything over the $400,000 at the higher rate, and you would be taxed whatever's under $400,000 at the current rate, which is still pretty high. The average person still pays about 40% in taxes. That's pretty high. So just something to keep in mind. So if you saw on the news that, hey, Biden's tax plan, he's planning to increase taxes 63%. If you live in California, New York, yes, it is true. That's how high taxes can be for you. And that's not including property and sales taxes, by the way. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about purely income taxes, income and Social Security taxes. So the market's strong performance came despite a poor jobs report for December, which highlighted the impact of surging COVID-19 cases. So we probably haven't seen the worst of COVID-19, by the way. This thing is not going away anytime soon. It's not going away anytime soon. Unfortunately, hate saying that, but that's the truth. That's the reality. You got to keep it real. You know, COVID is still here. It's still a pandemic. While adding while adding incentive for more stimulus. So basically, as there's virus, more stimulus, more vaccines is needed. That boosts the economy, and it helps stabilize things at least quite a bit. And by the way, if you're listening to this, please make sure you take advantage of these programs. There's billions and billions of dollars out there that you can get your hands on through PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And by the way, there's PPP 1 and PPP 2, so you can take advantage of both if you didn't get it the first time. And then also there's rental relief. I know some of my tenants will certainly be applying for that. We currently have 2 tenants that are late on payments, right? So out of the 57 that we have, basically 57 units we have control over, there's only 2 that essentially are late on payments. So what we'll do is the moment it gets released, we'll send them the application, and we'll let them know that, hey, if you need help, let us know. We can apply on your behalf with your permission. And boom, who knows? Last time it was $5,000 that landed in their bank accounts, or I should say our bank accounts, because we are the landlords, and the money goes directly to the landlord. So there's a lot of money out there. A lot of money. If you know somebody struggling, somebody who needs help paying, somebody who doesn't even need it, and you think qualifies, just let them know. Send them my contact information. Phone number 773-679-7198. Once again, 773-679-7198. Website is jeffbadu.com, jeffbadu.com. And we're more than happy to help out anybody who needs the help. Ask and ye shall receive. Seek and ye shall find, basically. So you won't get it if you don't seek it or if you don't apply for it. So by the end of the last week, the Russell 2000 gained nearly 6%. Keep in mind, the Russell 2000 was down pretty much all of last year except for the end of the year. Followed by the Global Dow, NASDAQ, S&P 500, and the Dow. Crude oil prices pushed above $50 per barrel after climbing more than 8.5% for the week. The dollar inched up by 0.25%, while gold prices fell by the end of the week. The national average retail price for regular gasoline was $2.24. So by the way, we have a new track. Instead of tracking crude oil prices, we're actually going to track how much gas prices are currently. And that was 0.006% higher than the prior week. But 0.329% less than a year ago. So gas prices have gone down overall. The highest regular gas prices on January 4th were, of course, one of my least favorite states on the planet, California, at $3.10, Massachusetts, $2.22, and New York, my absolute least favorite place in the world, $2.21. Of course, California and New York just somehow, some way, find the way to be in bad news when it comes to these numbers. It's like, man, taxes, gas prices, home prices. I mean, why is it that California and New York, and people are migrating out of those places, by the way. They're leaving. They're fed up. They're too expensive. You're paying $3.10 for gas in California, where you're not driving anywhere. And the average is $2.24. Does that really make any sense? Absolutely not. So I think California's got a big problem ahead of them. I think the next 5 years is going to look pretty damaging for California. And then also New York, too. We've already seen it, so it might get scary. I mean, it's already looking scary for these states, but it might get even scarier, right? As people start selling their homes, home prices get pushed down in those markets. It can get really ugly, really ugly. Somebody's $1 million home might only be worth $500,000 in the next 2 years. As much of a joke as I said that could actually happen. So just something to keep in mind out there. Then talking about the the markets for the week, the Dow went up 1.61%. NASDAQ, which is composed mainly of technology stocks, went up 2.43%. S&P 500, composed of the top 500 companies in the U.S., including Tesla, at 1.83%. Russell 2000, huge, 5.91% increase. Global Dow went up 3.65%. Federal funds rate, aka interest rates, are still at 0%, the lowest they've ever been. 10-year treasuries are at 1.1%. U.S. dollar is currently at $90.07. It's up 0.26%. Crude oil is up. It's now at $52.73. So it's going up. It's up 9%. That's big. That's big time. Gold is down. It's down 2.44% at $18.47. I'm sorry, 1,847. A few things to look out for this week. December's inflation indicators are out this week. This Consumer Price Index, CPI for short, which advanced 1.2% in 2020, isn't expected to advance more than the November rate of 0.2%. By the way, CPI is a great tracker of inflation, so that determines basically how high things have gone. And as you can see, the dismal 1.2%, that's pretty bad. I mean, it's good for people who are looking to buy, but pretty bad overall for the economy. Producer prices rose by only 0.8% last year and 0.1% last November. The retail sales report for December is also available this week. November saw retail sales fall 1.1%. However, the holiday shopping season should push retail sales up in December. So that's something to look out for. You'll probably see the markets go up on that. So that was the first week of January. I mean, what a week. I know we had a big week in our firm, Badu Enterprises, and I hope you had a great week. I hope you had a fabulous week. Hope this week is a great week. Now let's talk about 2020. I mean, just take a deep breath and just breathe out, right? Because 2020 was an interesting year, to say the least. And you might be wondering, wait a second, we're still in a pandemic. We're in 2021. Some people wanted 2020 to end. Well, what about 2021? Here we are now. So let's talk about the past 12 months. Over the past 12 months, we have endured a global pandemic, as if we didn't know that part, resulting in numerous deaths and hospitalizations, mass layoffs, a sinking economy, which I would take that with a grain of salt, and a contentious presidential election. Our lives and lifestyles changed where working and learning from home became the new normal. And in-person communication was replaced by virtual meetings. By the way, we've been virtual since 2016, so our firm has been virtual for 5 years now. In short, 2020 was a very, 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 very memorable year that tested our resolve, patience, and courage. For those that made it through 2020, congratulations. I do applaud you. It was a big, crazy, emotional roller coaster. And for you to make it into 2021, welcome to 2021. Welcome to the future. I welcome you and I congratulate you for making it, because 2020 was quite the year. March, everything happened. Everything changed in 2020, March of 2020. The year began with news of SARS-like virus spreading in China. And by the way, that happened before 2020. Little did we know the impact this contagion, right, would impart on our health, politics, and economy. Late in January, the very first known case of COVID-19 in the United States involved a Washington State victim who had traveled from the city of, you guessed it, Wuhan, China. So where did the virus originate? Wuhan, China. By February, the growing number of reported cases of the virus prompted travel restrictions, stay-at-home orders, and shutting down of businesses both domestically and around the world. So not only did China want to hurt, for lack of a better term, the U.S., but also the entire world. So you heard about Spain, you heard about the UK, who's still going through it, South Africa. I mean, it was crazy, and it still is crazy because we're still here today. Right? Everything I'm telling you right now is still applicable to today. Aside from concern caused by the virus, we were consumed by the impeachment. Right? So our president, by the way, was about to get impeached, and I believe they actually approved it, and then all of a sudden, who knows if they're related, the virus hits. We were consumed by the impeachment in February of President Trump, who was eventually acquitted by the Senate. Right? That's crazy. And then all of a sudden, pandemic gets declared, state of the emergency, we can't impeach him anymore, and now we're basically biting ourselves, or we're kicking ourselves for allowing him to stay there. Of course, there's not a whole lot we could have done about it, because he seemed to have gotten his act together a little bit, at least, once the pandemic hit, because he even caught COVID-19. Hoping that would humble him a little bit, but apparently not. So basically, and I remember we had bombs from Iran that shot up, Kenya, one of the U.S. bases in Kenya. And then, China back and forth war. I was literally at the airport when the Iran missile launched, and it was crazy. I'm like, holy cow, it's kind of scary. It kind of reminds me of 9/11 a little bit, but it didn't get to that extent. Thank you, Jesus. But just something to keep in mind. We had so much happening even before the pandemic. There was so much happening, and then boom, pandemic hits, and next thing you know, the world collapses. In March, the World Health Organization, or WHO, declared a global pandemic as the spread of the virus reached more than 100 countries with more than 100,000 reported cases. By mid-March, President Trump declared a state of national emergency. Hint, hint, that's where they couldn't impeach him. World economies and stock markets were rocked, and I mean big time rocked, by the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Me personally, I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I was like, what's going to happen? We were still seeing about 5% of our clients before then. Let's just say we haven't seen a client in person since February of 2020. We just said, hey, stay home. We can do it virtually. Don't even risk yourself. Don't risk yours. Don't risk ours. Stay home. We'll take care of it. Send us the documents. We'll do everything. And that's how we do it now. We do it 100% virtually as far as the taxes and other services are concerned. So it's interesting how things really happen. But leading to major market sell-offs, plunging stocks well below their 2019 value. So there was a big panic. People started selling left and right. It was quite crazy. A lot of fires had to be put out at that time. The U.S. first quarter gross domestic product decelerated at a rate of negative 5%, only to be outdone by a second quarter deceleration of 31.4%. 31.4%. That's how low the U.S. economy went. Fear became the motivating factor in our lives. Fear of contracting the virus. I mean, who really wasn't scared back in March? Everybody was scared. Like, oh, what's going to happen? Now things have, quote unquote, calmed down. Of course, there's new strains and everything going around. So people are still scared, but I think people are more relaxed. They're kind of more used to it now. But there's still fear. Fear of contracting the virus. Fear of losing a loved one to the virus. Fear of job loss. A lot of people unfortunately went through that. All prayers go to those who lost their jobs. Fear of economic failure and fear of losing our money. In response to the economic turmoil caused by the pandemic, several pieces of legislation were passed, including the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplement Appropriations Act and the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So we have the CPRSA, then we have the FFCRA, and then a massive COVID-19 rescue package, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act. By the way, that's three tax reforms all in one, which included the Paycheck Protection Program and distribution of stimulus checks to qualifying individuals. So there were about $1,200 checks that were sent to families. In May, focus shifted, and I think that really helped the economy, by the way. I think that really helped stabilize it a bit, because things would have really went down if the government didn't really bail people out. In May, focus shifted to the death of George Floyd, rest in peace to George Floyd, which sparked protests and confrontations across the country. And of course, that led to other things along with that. The summer months saw a slight lull in the number of reported virus cases. Economies began to marginally recover. Some businesses began to reopen, and travel restrictions were relaxed. However, the availability of testing for the virus increased, so did the number of reported cases, ironically. Following the Democratic and Republican national conventions, the campaign for the presidential election captured the focus of most Americans for the rest of the year. Although COVID-19 seemed to cast a shadow over almost every aspect of our lives, concerts, family, I mean, we couldn't do anything. I thank God we were able to have our wedding last year, because had we not, we probably wouldn't be able to have it until 2022. Who knows when the virus is going to end, by the way. So we say, you know what? We had a window of opportunity. We prayed. September 20th, 2020, we got married. My wife, beautiful wife, Yvonne, shout out to her, and I were able to get married that day. Of course, went on our honeymoon. So that's, yeah, I mean, 2020 was a crazy year, to say the least. The November presidential election resulted in the defeat of President Donald Trump by former Vice President Joe Biden, with the post-election period dominated by attempts to overturn the results through federal courts and state legislatures. Nevertheless, some positive news came at the end of the year, which was huge while I was on vacation. Next thing you know, development and initial dissemination of COVID-19 vaccines and additional legislation that provided $900 billion, and that you read that right, $900 billion in pandemic-related stimulus, aka a second stimulus package, which included the PPP-1 refunding, PPP-2, EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan / grants. You had rental relief. There was a ban on evictions that got extended. And then there were other programs, vaccine support, schools, everything like that. The new year brings with it a sense of hope. And I hope that's how you see 2021, as a year of hope. I encourage you to not let 2020 bring you down. I encourage you to look to 2021 as a year of opportunity, as a year of hope, as a year not to get complacent. Right? I believe some of us might have gotten complacent because we were so used to the normal. And next thing you know, we got complacent. So we have to find new ways to get things done. Maybe do things virtually now instead of in person, if you can. If you're a real estate agent, maybe doing virtual showings. Maybe investing in technology. Maybe developing that new skill or trade that you were always looking to do because you might have been laid off or furloughed from your job. So I hope this year is a year of hope. Of course, our church's theme is victory. And I think that's what 2021 is. We defeated 2020, and let's get a better year, 2021. 2021 is massive. I know it is for me, and I hope it is for you as well. Hope that the virus will be controlled. Hope for a return to some form of normalcy in our daily lives, especially for the kids. Man, I feel for the kids so much. Hope for economic prosperity and job security. Hope for peace, hope here and around the world, and a good riddance to 2020. Now let's talk about what the market did, and you'll be surprised to see some of these numbers. The Dow Jones went up 7.25% at the end of 2020. NASDAQ, composed mainly of technology stocks, here it is, 43.64%. The NASDAQ, composed mainly of technology stocks, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Tesla, Amazon, went up 43.64%. Shout out to Elon Musk for becoming the wealthiest man on the planet, by the way, surpassing Jeff Bezos for the first time in a long time, since 2017. Big shout out to Elon. I mean, I watched his interviews. The guy is a hustler. He's a hard worker, grinder. I mean, he's a real, true grinder, and he definitely deserves that spot. But tech went up. And by the way, if you need a great place to put your money, I think you're better off in technology. We just read a report of what happened in the first week of January. The first week alone, the NASDAQ is up 2.43%. Why in the world would you not put your money in tech stocks? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if you have some extra money sitting on the side, or if you're investing in stocks, or if you have some money somewhere in general, you might want to consider technology stocks. They were up 43.64%, and then in 2019, it was up pretty big as well. S&P 500 went up 16.26%. Shout out to those that listen to the advice and taking advantage of a universal life insurance policy that indexes you and benchmarks you to the market. You'd have won big time last year. Russell 2000 went up 18.36%. The global Dow went up 7.27%. Interest rates went down 150 basis points, or 1.5%. So now we're at 0%. 10-year treasuries went down 1%, and now we're at 1.91%. So let me just give you a few little tips and tricks, and then we'll save about 2 minutes at the end to talk about what's to expect at the end of, for 2021, essentially. So let's see what happened in equities, aka the stock market. As with most every aspect of 2020, the pandemic impacted the stock market throughout the year. Investors began hearing of possible spread of the virus in January, creating uncertainty, and basically there was a lot of uncertainty. By the end of February, investors sold more equities than they purchased, driving values down. It's all about supply and demand, by the way. As supply goes up, and basically as more people are selling, the demand goes down. That means that stock prices get lower. As more and more people want to buy, that means prices get higher because more people want in. So it's all supply and demand, same thing with real estate. By the end of March, the spread of COVID-19 throughout much of the world and within the United States prompted a major market sell-off, major, through April. The first quarter saw each of the benchmark indexes fall far below its 2019 closing values. Fiscal stimulus measures in April, coupled with value buying, drove stocks to their best month since 1987. The possibility of a COVID-19 vaccine, a brief slowdown in the number of reported cases, and the onset of the summer season provided enough encouragement for investors to stay in the market. The reason why the stock market is up, by the way, right now is because more and more people are investing. So that's it's all supply and demand. That's all it really is. Throughout the year, the rest of the year, despite a resurgence in the number of reported COVID-19 cases and deaths, a historic number of unemployment claims, delays in the long-awaited vaccine, and additional stimulus, investors saw hope that the economy would turn the corner and that the virus would be contained. Those factors, coupled with the low interest rate environment, made stocks a viable option. On the last day of the year, the Dow and the S&P 500 ended at all-time highs. We're still at the highest possible in the stock market. And then, in fact, the fourth quarter was robust for stocks, with each of the indexes posting double-digit gains, headed by the small caps of the Russell 2000, which surged to a gain of over 31% in the last quarter. Despite the turmoil and early year losses, all of the benchmark indexes closed 2020 well ahead of 2019. And the tech stocks of NASDAQ, which gained more than 43%, led the way, followed by the Russell 2000, S&P 500, the Dow, and the Global Dow. What is it telling you? Buy tech stocks right now if you don't own tech stocks. And if you currently own, buy more or keep holding. Do not sell your tech stocks. I don't think this thing will slow down anytime soon as far as technology is concerned, because more and more people are demanding technology. So let's see what else is in here. Let's quickly talk about interest rates. The Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC for short, lowered interest rates dramatically in 2020 while instituting new and drastic measures in response to the economic turmoil caused by COVID-19. The year began with the target range for the federal funds rate at 1.5 to 1.75%. However, due to negative effects of COVID-19, the Federal Reserve cut the federal funds the Federal Reserve controls interest rates. They cut rates by 1.5%, basically down to 0%. Interest rates are at the lowest they will ever possibly be. We won't go negative, most likely. In addition, the Fed instituted a policy of unlimited bond buying, including the purchase of corporate bonds, $300 billion in new financing, and the establishment of 2 new facilities, the Term Asset-Backed Securities Loan Facility to enable the issuance of asset-backed securities, oh boy, and a Main Street business lending program to support lending to eligible small and medium-sized businesses. So remember, anytime there's something bad in the economy, there's usually stimulus that gets implemented. And then the target range for the federal funds rate stayed at 0% through December and will likely remain there for most of 2021. The Fed also committed to continue increasing its holdings of treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. All right, so let's see if there's anything else on my list, on my sheet, that I should talk about. I guess let's wrap it up to some things to look forward to this year. By the way, real estate prices are expected to drop at some point this year. I don't do price speculation, but I mean, really, there's never a bad time to buy real estate. So if you don't own a home, or if you're thinking about it and all that, this might be a great year to buy. Interest rates are very low right now. So this year, what to look forward to? The year 2021 should bring continued economic recovery. Continued economic recovery, meaning the stock market will keep going up. As the United States and the world inch slowly toward normalcy following the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, stock markets, employment, and production should also advance. I'll leave it there. Interpret it however way you want to interpret it. Take it for however way you want to take it. But that's what we're pretty much looking at. We do have a question. Can you give some of the names of the stocks you're talking about? Yeah, so basically it's tech stocks, right? Literally look at something around you right now, like tech, and like your phone, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Google. Use Google every single day. These are the hot ones. So we got Tesla. Basically, we call it the FANG, F-A-A-N-G. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, that's in there. Google, and then also Tesla. So we have to add a T or something at the end. Tesla is another big one. So Facebook, Amazon, Apple, right? Netflix, Google, Tesla, and Microsoft. I just named 6 of the hottest stocks to look forward to in 2020. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in to WGHC LP FM, 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. I won't be here next Monday. I'll actually be doing a Facebook Live for the Chicago Urban League. We have our last class on how to build business credit. I'll be streaming that live on Facebook from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. I will be here the following week to talk about the Biden tax plan, as he gets inaugurated and everything. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out, 773-679-7198. Website is jeffbadu.com. Email is jeffbadu@gmail.com. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you have a relaxed evening and tuning in to Money Talks. Thank you.
Yes,
I was taking pictures for the station.
And I remember you kind of looking at me, they were just looking like, wait a minute, you need to do a program.